Here we go. All right. Hello, everybody. I am Coach Les, and I am here with Sujata Tiwari, the author of Against All Odds. And we are going to dive right in today because we're running a little bit behind. So thank you for joining us. We are here today, and I'm going to let Sujata take over and hear what we're going to be talking about today because I think it's going to be fun. I think people are going to get a little revved up, juiced up, and ready to talk about responsibility. Sujata, it's all yours.
We are going to talk about politics. We are going to talk about conscience. And we are going to talk about how characters evolve. When I talk of politics, it's not politics of the government, it's politics of the people. And that's what we are going to talk about. For those who have heard my book or read my book, I will start off with a chapter or a time in my life which is going to be about the subject. So, when I was in my first job, and I had to step down from my job, and later my husband also had to, you know, leave the job. It was because of politics that was played, and it was used to, you know, make people leave or to create the disharmony that we face in life. And imagine that after all these years, we land up with a person who carried the guilt of being a part of that politics for more than 25 years. And the person reached out and confessed that at that point of time, he did not know why he was being asked questions by the management as to whether I used to come to office, uh, meet my husband, and did I and my husband live together? Did we talk to people there? And he answered yes to most of the questions. And shortly thereafter, he saw that I left, and my husband, who was his supervisor, also left. And they had a child, and I had gone to visit them and to see the child. And I talked to the wife, and I just said in my fashion that what was it that made your husband to get into this politics? What harm did we do that he had to, say and do those things? And then we forgot about it. And lo behold, now today, as of just 2 days back, he reached out and he said that that statement, which was conveyed by his wife, struck him, and he's been carrying that guilt ever since. And he wanted to, get it off his chest and to say how sorry he was. However, what he and I and the others don't know is that was just a stepping stone. I can positively and say and look back and say, okay, I connect the dots. If he didn't do that, if that politics didn't happen, I wouldn't have gone into my next phase of career, which is journalism. That does not take away from what the people did. It's about their character. And they knew that they were wrong. Some people have the conscience, and some people don't have any conscience. And they always backstab, they always betray. Over to you.
And as you can hear in this conversation, what we're dealing with is people that, and one of my most recent examples of this same conversation is when I interviewed somebody, had a couple other people interview them. They went through a trial process, agreed to the terms of a position, and for the time that it suited them, they played the rules. And then suddenly at the end of the game, they changed the rules, went out of communication, stopped doing what they said they would do. And not only in that moment created something that didn't work, but turned around and attacked me by saying, look, I'm going excommunicado and no longer want anything to do with anybody that I've been involved with. And yet, looking to try and figure out what it was that even happened at the beginning to have that person shift their point of view and what they agreed to in the beginning. And then they have the audacity, is the way I look at it, they have the audacity to turn it around and stick you in the back so that to the entire world around you, it occurs like you're the bad guy. And the only way to clean that bad guy image up is you have to literally throw a ton of gossip onto the table to give the what I call the field of conversation with all of the contextual pieces to then have them be seen as the perpetrator that they are. And for me, it's like, wait a minute, why don't you just keep your word? What is so horrible about keeping your word and maintaining your integrity and come and stand in front of somebody and say, look, I want to remake our agreement. I want to look at our agreement and change it. You know what? That's the great, I think at this point now, because this has happened to me 3 times in the last year in serious positions, I would literally get down and say, thank you so much for being in communication. Oh, I don't even mind what bad news you're going to give me now, because being in communication has us both look like adults, and we can create it with our village, with our team, and with the people around us and make a difference. And that's my point in this, Sujata, is when it comes to there's something that holds people back and they somehow think into the future so far, or they think they know better than the future because of their past that they're looking through, that they make stupid choices. And instead of being in communication, because they're in a new agreement, they've never been in an agreement like the one they're in. Why? Because it's the one they're in. So all there is to do is say, look, I made an agreement and I would like to change that agreement. Perfect. Now we are somewhere. Now we're 2 adults discussing a situation where there's an environment around us that has changed, that now makes us want to redo our agreement. What a beautiful concept. That isn't the norm, though. And friends, and I've listened to friends of people like this in my business, where friends say, well, you deserve it. Just leave. They'll figure it out. You've given them so much. And it's like, wait a minute. Where does this come from? Your friends don't even know the situation. Did you actually tell them the agreement? Did you tell them all the pieces? Well, no. Okay, so they're making blind, stupid, dramatic, soap opera type choices for you to take without all the evidence. Guess how that works? Well, in court, you lose. Back to you, Sujata.
Exactly. That's in court that you lose. But in the court of life, it is where you have to defend yourself, which you should not be doing because you're the one who's backstabbed, you're the one who's betrayed. And that's what I'm coming to, that why do people befriend to betray? And they do that all the time. And that is the nature of the humans, that it is very difficult to protect yourself from. And but they shape our day, they shape our course of actions, they shape sometimes our life. If something costs somebody a job, ask yourself, what did you do? It's not mere politics, right? It's not mere, not having integrity of character, like you just now gave your case. That's integrity of character. We can console ourselves and say, other people's actions don't define us, but they do define some situations that we are forced into. And how do we deal with it? So it's a constant evolution of your having to evolve as a character by dealing with such situations. And there is no court of law here, right, where we can say that you were the perpetrator and you were responsible for as little as spoiling my day to spoiling my life. And it has so much of repercussions. For example, in your case, I'm just thinking of the trust that you built with the person. What happened to that trust which was betrayed? Would you trust again very easily? Would you give very generously? It's a big challenge to do that when you're faced with this time and time again.
I think, though, um, it, to to honor that and to play into that, what you just said, though, Sujata, is I'm not going to lose my integrity, and I'm not going to lose my commitment to the human race and making a difference and lower my standards because of one or two schmucks. And I think that's, to me, that's where the adversaries, the adversary, the devil, whatever you want to call that side of the equation, that's where they win. They win if we shift our way of being and our character in any way, shape, or form. That's when they win. And they know it, right? They're looking to get a reaction out of us because in that moment that we react and go down that path, we're now out of integrity for ourselves. And that's what they're looking to do. And that's the underhanded backstabbing result that I am now aware of because I've had it happen 3 times in the last year and I've seen what I've done from those other two. And I'm not going to go there this time. I refuse to let them win by shaking my stand. Instead, I'm going to play the game of the willow tree and just bend in the wind, let that full storm brush over me and stand back up.
That's because you're evolved. Not everybody is. And some people can break. They're not all trees who can just bend. There are trees which break. There are plants which die. And the question is not about ourselves. We can speak from a level because we have that integrity. I'm talking of the perpetrators. What happens to them when we don't call out what they did by keeping silent, which a lot of people do and hurt inside? That's when we allow them to get away to commit that action again and again.
Right, but silence has no integrity, Sujata. That
That's what
silence
I'm saying.
that that silence has no integrity because that means that you're now going to let the actions that happened eat you up inside.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So we can't be silent. We have to speak out. We have to
Exactly.
we
Now,
have to call out.
now here's the key though. The key is how do you speak out? And that's where it gets exciting. Because if you speak out with anger or venom or anything that is out of integrity or inauthentic, that's where once again they win. And therefore there's a way to take a deep breath. There's a way to be responsible and step back and look and go, okay, what is there for me to do to be responsible for this backstabbing, to communicate effectively, to draw a line in the sand, and to recreate and rebuild and to let people know. And I think this time around, Sujata, I I was very clear. I sent emails and texts, basically that kind of communication that elicited a response from this individual that showed their true colors. I then went to the organization and sat down with the powers that be and shared this sequence of events. And I said, here's what happened. And here's the request. Here's the breakdown. And here's what I'm looking at doing moving forward. And I think, the next time I have that meeting, again, will be to share what the situation is with full transparency, even though it may have me look sometimes like I'm weak or not fighting for my point of view and my integrity. I believe that that's a way to show a bigger, stronger, powerful place to come from with that level of integrity. And I think when that person finds out that what they did has made me stronger and made us as a group more cohesive and brought us together, they're then going to have to deal with the repercussions and rethink what they had and maybe even get to the point where they apologize. And I believe that's possible. So back to you, Sujat.
Yes, it depends on context and situations. And my way of operating has always been that sometimes there is a power of silence where you don't even allow them to touch you. So if somebody is very negative, to give an example, you have read the book, and some people have heard the book, bought the book, and read the book. In Singapore, there was this lady who read the book and was one of the few people who gave me a 5-page review personally, in which she was very, very harsh, very, very negative, and she expected me that I should be so, so big in nature and spirit that I should actually forgive the victim who, in her mind, was not my daughter, but who was the rapist. And there were many things which she said, including quoting two religions, which says that after life, if we forgive such things, then we'll have a better life. I just did not respond. I did not say a word, and it sat heavily with her. And few days later, when there was a webinar where my book was being talked about and I was giving a talk, she came back prior to that date and she admitted and apologized that she was very harsh and she was wrong. And she was one of the first persons to say that the courageous step that I took in reporting the incident was something that we all learn from. So you see, I didn't have to say a word or do a thing. I had to just be silent, and that silence sometimes can be so heavy with people that they realize. But that's not true for everybody and every case. So there are times when you exercise and call out by writing or by speaking up. It's very difficult. I've seen in the corporate world when the people at the top are the ones who are doing the politics and affecting people down the line, then there is no way to go. You can, of course, you should write and leave a trail record of the injustice that happened. I always believe whether somebody is listening or not, do make a point to make a point if need be. I mean, if you know that it's no use and you're going to just leave and go, that's fine. But at least see to it that you made a point and left. Don't go silently for it to be covered up or put under the rug. And then, the next person who comes is meted out the same treatment.
Yeah. Well, let's take a look, Sujata. Let's hand it to a couple people and see what they have to say about this. And
Yes.
I'd like to hear. We'll just start at the top in no particular
No.
order. Joey.
Hey, Coach. Can you hear me? I'm in a
Beau-
place in a. Can you hear me?
Yep, beautifully.
Perfect. Wow. As far as having the communications, communicating with somebody, and a lot was said. Um, and I agree with you. Silence is not staying in that integrity or in the when it comes to communication. Um, as far as having somebody, I'm just thinking about examples with my situation right now with my own family. With I've mentioned it in the past that my mom lives with us now, and there's been some struggles in the marriage with my mom and my dad, and they are divorcing, and she has a lot of different things that happen in her that's going on in her life. Um, that she needs help with, and she's overwhelmed, and it all comes down to her. A lot of her emotion and her pain is coming from, it always ends in the common denominator. I can't believe your father's doing this to me, so with her, it's been important to respect her boundary and to keep this communication going, and there have been times where she's been upset with me for maybe saying or speaking my thoughts, and I've had to explain to her, I understand you're upset with me, and you may have not have heard or wanted to hear what I've had to say. But I tried to explain to her the position that I'm coming from, and trying to get her to understand my place being her son, and my place in the relationship, that it's coming from not just I have an opinion, but because of your age and because you've never done anything for yourself, because my father, was that old school, he did everything in the bills and everything like that. She doesn't really have an understanding of how to do some of the most basic stuff, banking and stuff like that, whatever. So I let her know that no, I didn't mean to offend you, or I didn't mean to upset you, but I'm doing it, from a place of love, and I'm doing it from a place of sternness, because I go back to that emotion that she has about the divorce. So I say all of this to say that, learning to communicate, and obviously is important, but learning to respond versus react, and the example that you gave, just reacting. The example that you gave with the environment that you were in, with interviewing someone and having them come in, and it sounds like they're reacting and not responding. So that's my thought: responding versus reacting.
It's really great, Joey. Thank you so much. And with that, I'm going to pass the mic over to Gloria San. Good evening. How are you? Good evening, good morning, good day.
Gloria is a friend of mine.
By being here. Um,
I've been listening to all of you, and I think all of you have or is right. And how can I say? I think we need everything what you said. From you to Joy to Sujata. Sujata has a respond. I believe that mostly of the time was a respond because I know her and what she wrote. And Joy, I think it has the clue is these differences that make the difference. I believe that the people that commit this kind of, I would say, I don't know the name.
Perpetrations.
Say crime.
Perpetrations.
Perpetration is someone that is not okay. So how can I say? It's something that is not mentally healthy. So it's someone that is sick. So when we have someone sick, we have now COVID. We prevent the other has a contagious or has the effect of their sickness. So we need to prevent that this person can harm someone, and at the same time is hurting himself or herself, mostly himself. So we need to prevent that they can harm someone, and then we need to help them to cure their problem. How we do that? Oh, I think the clue is the presence or what Joey said, these differences between react and respond. So we need to respond to give the best option to this person, not harm anyone, and we need to help him to not hurt himself, because it's an aggression that he's doing to their own humanity as well. So they have been hard in a way to react that way. It cannot be other way. This is what I think. But we need to have the adequate response.
Sujata?
Yes.
What do you
Yes.
What do
I
you
think
say?
I think everybody has captured it brilliantly there, and it is always a choice that you make of whether you want to react or you want to respond, and it's not the same every time in every case. So you have to size up the situation and choose when you want to react. Sometimes you have to react, and sometimes you have to respond. But whichever way you look at it, take a step, a moment or two to evaluate the whole thing and then choose your response. You always have the choice. That's what I would like to say.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think it's the work that Sujata has been done, all the legal process, and as well now the process to give this visibility to this big problem we have, especially women in the world, is the adequate response. Then we don't know if what others could do in this process, but what she provided was an adequate response to the harmful situation, and to try to that the system understood that they are not having a response. They are only having a reaction. They don't have a conscious. They are not. I don't think that society is really conscious of the whole problem that we have with violence, because in fact it's violence.
Yes,
And
they don't have a conscience. You're right.
Well, so
and
here's
that's why I think that Sujata do the right response, because she makes people conscious of this unconsciousness.
so here's the thing. Is it that they don't have a conscience, or is it that they have never learned this art of living with a human being? That's my question back to you, Gloria.
Are you related to the perpetrators or
Yes, to the
related to the system?
No, to the perpetrators. I believe that we're dealing with perpetrators that don't, and perhaps I'm giving them too much credit, but I believe that there are perpetrators out there that don't know any different. Their entire life has been marketed to, trained around, their parents, all of them, and this is just the natural flow of poop that they have lived with, and they continue to poop into the future.
Yeah, I mean, but this is a reflection of what society it is.
Amen.
This society doesn't respect women, and in their families they have a extreme situation. That for sure.
Oh,
That they don't have any kind of consciousness. I mean, we have all these things that we call micro machines, and nobody knows that they're micro machines. And this is happening even with women. We are having this kind of behavior, and we don't even know that we have this kind of traits in our behavior. So, I mean, we are not guilty. We are responsible to make this conscious, to make the system conscious, and to think that these families has problem, and to help this family not having that problem. Then they are not conscious at all of what they happen. I remember, for example, Edgar Tolle. Edgar Tolle, his foundation is working. One of the sector is in prison, and they are working with every kind of person, perpetrators and other criminals in prison, and they try to make it then a knowledge, aware of what really happened in their minds to have this kind of behavior. What are the triggers? What are the emotions? What are the heart that has? But that nobody's conscious, not even the system. Because if the system were in another way, Sujata has not the problem she has. And trying to get the process to the right point. So nobody's conscious.
Well,
it's us here. We are conscious, and we are going to develop the consciousness by talking.
Well, I think, Eckhart Tolle, right? He talks about now. And what we live in a world where merchandising is all driven by the reflection of the past. People don't live in the now. The now is this place where marketing companies lose footing. They get nervous because they don't necessarily know or understand, and heaven forbid that they do something new, exciting, and different. Because somebody might get upset. Well, so what? Good. Let's shift the context. Let's shift the conversation. Let's shift the diatribe that exists out there that's functionally broken, and choose something different. We've been talking about respect for women for thousands of years. Let's figure it out and make it go away, because it really is. It can be that simple, but instead you've got all these diehards that think that somehow they're going to lose something if the system is rebooted. And they're not going to lose something. They're going to have to actually step up and grow up. And, to me, the level of consciousness, at least from what I know of the US, it may be different in other countries. We're still operating with diapers on. And this country poops all over itself all the time. And nobody's responsible for it. And then they sit and point the finger at everybody else. It's like, oh, well, I mean, I can't believe how many times in the past, oh, it's Nixon's fault. Oh, it's Vice President Mondale's fault. Oh, it's Clinton's fault. Oh, it's Reagan's fault. Oh, and every current presidency, instead of saying, you know what, we're the United States, we're a country with some pieces, it's our responsibility. And now let's figure out how to make a shift that works for everybody, instead of fighting back and forth and spending all the time fighting so that the only people that win are the billionaires and big companies and big enterprise and big pharma, because they thrive in discord. They thrive in the horrible weather. They thrive on downtrodden people. And inside of this conversation, for me, it's, respect in general, not just for women. Respect, you talk to Ori Spado, the accidental gangster, and he'll tell you, respect is missing in the world today, period. Respect for self, respect for others, respect for property, respect for all of it. And yet nobody has enough backbone to stand up to it, until you bump into somebody like Sujata, who's saying, look, system, screw you. I'm going to step up. And her book is Against All Odds. Of course, how appropriately named. Now, what if we all did that? Then it wouldn't be against all odds. It would just be, oh, this has become the new norm. And we have to rise to the occasion as a government to support that new norm. So back to you, Sujata. Oh, hold on one second, Sujata. Hold on. There you go.
I said, do we have anybody else on stage who would like to say
Michelle
something? I
Thompson.
think yes, Michelle was there.
Hey, good morning. Sorry, good morning over here anyway. Good evening and afternoon to everyone else around the world. Well, what a loaded topic. Amazing topic, great topic. And I have to agree with just about what everyone said so far. I think, too, it comes back down to the dynamics. Credibility is so important. And basically, I'm a survivor of abuse every way, shape, and form. And in my environment, it was really negative. And when I say negative, you could not do anything right. It didn't matter what you did. But, that's what happens when you grow up in home where all you're witnessing is domestic violence. I think I saw my mum in hospital more than ever, and most often with purple black eyes. One of the eyes generally quite shut from the hits my dad gave her. But, in my family, it wasn't, and I talk about this in my book, because the only way to be authentic and tell the truth is in the story. And I talk about this in the home. In my book, about the experiences I experienced as a child. Fear was evident at the age of 3, and that's very young. I looked at my grandchildren, and that kind of popped in my mind, like, they have a village of people raising them, and I'm not even kidding, people who love them. They'll go out into the world and they'll find love and they'll see love. And they're very active, very adventurous. They have a lifestyle that most children could only dream of. And my daughter is such a great mother. However, my life was a little bit different. Blame was very at the top of it. And not just by my dad, my immediate family, it was also by my dad's family. So you have a village of people telling you what you're not doing right, and it just creates an unstable world, of distrust and betrayal. And, I got blamed, for what happened to me at 19. They rejected me because I went and spoke to the police. And so all of a sudden I'm there, and it was just a world of confusion. Nobody ever, made sense. You get told off and you don't know what you're getting told off for. Then you're sent to every other house. And so as a child, you think, well, okay, so who's going to have me next? Because my story was that as soon as it's too much for people, they're just going to move me on. And I lived emotionally for many, many years. And that's, emotions are great to have, terrible to live your life by. And so, there was a lot of condemnation, that hammered down. I witnessed my mum getting beat. Then I witnessed my dad, running down my sister. And then I witnessed, my family just completely being divided, going against each other. Because when you learn to grow up in an environment with hate, you fast learn, bless Jesus, that there's a thing called love. And so, being in that environment, you don't trust anyone. When I got saved in 2005, the only person I was going to rely on was God, because my thing was simple with him. If you're not real, it's okay, because my life hasn't been real anyway. And even now, telling my story, my family is still not happy with that. But I have to remember that this is a vision that God has given me. Do you know what I mean? Because my family have a thing that, I'm not going to make it, because they don't make it. I'm not going to do well in my business because they don't have a business. But here's the thing. I saw everybody falling. I didn't want to fall. Being an alcoholic and a drug addict, and yes, it changed my brain. By 19 is a very young age. I mean, I look at my children, I think, goodness me, I'd be rolling. Do you know what I mean? With complete grief if they ever did that. They don't do that. Their life is pretty good. And so I look at the fact that, okay, I might not have been the perfect mother, but God has certainly, because of my faith in him, he has certainly blessed my children with careers, and so for me, even trying to explain, having a meeting with them, it was like, well, you shouldn't have been there. Do you know what I mean? That was your own fault. You're SLUT like your mother. Do you know what that was the conversations we would have. It's your problem. No one wants to hear your shit. So nobody wanted to hear my story. Do you know what I mean? Because I just meant nothing. And that is the truth of it all. I was a nobody's child. Nobody gave a toss. And then, of course, I went out into the world and did that, became destructive, had mental anguish. And so then I raised myself from the age of 12. And, it sounded, it sounded like, oh, my goodness, but here's the thing. I was so busy, with I was nightclubbing then. Do you know what I mean? It was a lot of fun. And it's only because my sister's friend's parents owned a nightclub, and I looked older than I was, and they'd let me in. And so then I got introduced to the world of men. Do you know what I mean? I went down that road and became a prostitute. Everyone know, and that's why when something happened to me, and that's part of the reason I got the blame for it, because I had done that line of work, or we're seeing you when you're drunk, And so all my life has been really nothing but betrayal. And the one that I loved the most and who was meant to protect me betrayed me even worse. It severed our relationship. However, this is what I learned in my healing journey. My parents, they weren't educated, except my mum came from an educated family. She was a nurse. My dad wasn't. He was a labourer. He worked at a tyre place. But it was just surrounded in complete chaos and awfulness, and to the point where you carried the generational BS, if you like, because you didn't have a choice, because you were made to, and you weren't allowed to make mistakes. Oh no, you effed up, and they would let you know that. And so you would basically be in silence most of the time. We weren't allowed to show emotion, because it angered my dad too much, and he was so scary. It was like living with Jekyll and Hyde, and I'm not even kidding. Sometimes he'd be really nice, and other times he'd just be plain out evil. I was like, who are you? My sister just told me the other day, I didn't even know our parents because they weren't really at home. We were raising ourselves as kids. And unfortunately, it divided my immediate family. And so my prayer right now is to be able to go home and introduce my daughter, who's 13, to my two sisters who she's never met, only spoken to over the phone. So, yes, there was a lot of unforgiveness in there, because I didn't realize at that point that unforgiveness really was not saying that what happened to you was right. It was about forgiving myself and allowing me to be free from the power that unforgiveness held on me. Is there still some things that I need to be delivered from? Absolutely, because, I'm a realist. And I'm not ashamed to admit it. But, you know, being in here elevates me. I love this room, Coach Les. I'm following you all over every time, because I know that the value that you add and some of the things that you say, I'm just like, oh my gosh, so simple, because I'm a simple person. However, God told me that my life was going to get better. God told me that he had a plan and a purpose for it, that everything that I went through, he was going to give me everything that the locust stole. And when I sometimes run into situations, I always remember that. Do you know what I mean? Unfortunately, this is what happened. The poison that they told everybody in New Zealand has spilled over to our children. And so, you know, from my older daughter's mouth, it was like, well, you know, Mum, no one really wants to hear that shit. You know what I mean? It's hurtful because she's my daughter and I love her. But I cannot really put myself around people who don't support me, because it just makes my journey that much more difficult. But anyway, there's a book coming out later. As you can tell, there's a lot to put in that book, and it's probably not just one. But, you know, I'm focusing on building my company and having fun talking on these platforms about my story, and, you know, excited about writing my book, you know, and not just that. This is how I know God has had me all this time. Because what's happening now doesn't happen to people like me. I didn't go to school, right? But he's blessed me with some gifts, and he's blessed me with a life, and he's blessed me with some things that I didn't even know I could do and have. You know, it was too far out of my reach, you know. People like me don't reach where I've reached. And so at the end of the day, it really comes down to my children. And the reason that happened is because my children's dad's got very sick and he can't work anymore. And I don't want to leave this earth, you know, wondering who's taking care of them. I want to leave this earth knowing that they can take care of themselves. So anyway, that is my story, and there's lots more to it, but we won't go there. Thank you so much. I'm Michelle. I yield this mic.
Awesome, Michelle. Thank you so much. Really appreciate. I really appreciate the authenticity, the transparency, the journey that you have gone through. And I don't know about the rest of you, but you can definitely hear in her voice the peace with the way it is. And not a peace that's like, you know, oh, go sit on a mountain and smoke a peace pipe type, but the peace where the peace.
It just sounds funny going about to smoke a peace pipe.
The peace where it is what it is and it is what it isn't. And now what? What actions do I take? How do I move forward? And every moment and every day and every hour, I have a choice to move forward with that poop in front of me, smelling the rest of my life up for me to walk into, or do I take and scoop it up, put it in a bag, and set it beside me and move on? Doesn't mean it didn't happen. Doesn't mean it doesn't exist. All it means is I don't have to carry it in front of me like a serving plate going, here, look at my poop. People, smell it before you get to know me. And I think this is what so many people deal with, and so many people have as their excuse for bad behavior, for being disrespectful, for being condescending, for being a person with no integrity. They have this litany of excuses that says, look, oh, woe is me. I've been blah, 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 blah. And due to the fact that I've been blah, 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 I don't have to have integrity. I don't have to have respect. I don't have to be respectful. And that's a load of poop. Another load of poop. That's, for me, that's the sin of it all, is that people walk around saying it's okay to be this way because of my past. And I think that's a bunch of poppycock. Anyway, over to you, Sujata.
What I want to say to Michelle is that the healing happens when we accept that certain things were thrown at us, which was not out of our choice. And no matter how hard it was, the way you have gone through with dealing with it, and that you speak about it and you take action and go against what was taught to you from society to keep silent or to, not say a word and all that, and you are saying it loud and clear and you are writing about it. I think that takes courage, and that is what we have to do when we are subjected to any kind of abuse and violence. So it's not that we invite them, and no matter what people say, it's not our thing to be dealt with. So we have to stand up and fight, and at every step say no, and say that we are going to come out and call you out. And that's what you're doing, and I'm very happy to see that. It's very motivating and inspiring when everyone comes out and talks about it.
Thank you so much, Sujata. I really appreciate that. Acceptance was one of the key things I learned a long time ago, because I found acceptance was, it doesn't actually have an effect on you. When you can accept that that is the situation, that is what you were dealt with, but it doesn't have to be the end of your story. And also, my children are watching. And I know they're watching. My daughter, who's 18, she's doing nursing this year. She's already talking about having, because she wants to do injectables. And her auntie has offered, because she's just bought a one of those skincare clinic things. Anyway, her auntie, which is her dad's sister, has just bought a company, a franchise of that over there, and she wants her to go back. So what I'm saying is, yesterday she was already talking about, oh, Mum, I wouldn't mind having my own business. And so, I know they're watching me. But you're absolutely right. I just knew at the end of the day, my parents didn't have many tools in their tool bag. And so, when I speak, it's so important for me to be real about the experience, because it's not about me. It is actually about helping other people to overcome, and that, I haven't met one person that has it together yet. So anyway, I'm going to leave on that note.
That's why I wrote the book, to inspire people to come out. That when we are alone, we have our courage to rely on. And even if we are alone amongst our own, we should have that courage and we should speak up and say no.
Beautiful.
I actually have tried that, but that just causes an argument, and I'm not prepared to go down that road. Do you know what I mean? Because really what I looked at, and I had a look at the whole picture when I had the opportunity to speak with my brother. My brother's just in complete denial, and that's okay. Do you know what I mean? Because all he came out with, that's load of bullshit. I'm like, no, it's my story. But my sister in New Zealand, she's so proud of me. She's like, I'm so proud of what you're doing. You know what I mean? And so she's only just come out to start to talk to me about the effects that it had on her. Because one thing that you can never take is the truth. The truth is always going to prevail. I know that much. My uncle, my dad's brother, he told me that. And my dad's brother was so lovely. He was a little bit like Coach Les, and I kept saying, I can't believe you're my dad's brother. Anyway, I love my dad. He's not here anymore. And I just put that peace. I made actually peace after he died, because I lost my sister before I lost him, due to the same thing. So when I speak about my story, I'm actually honoring my mother, who never had a voice. I'm honoring my sister, who never had a voice. And I'm honoring my sisters who live today, because they are not strong enough to go where I'm going. And of course it's going to upset people, but I always think of, what the torch that God's given me is where I've come out of. And so it's so important to talk about the things, like Martin Luther King says, they end when we be silent about the things that really matter. And abuse matters. Sexual, physical, mental, emotional, it matters. Thank you.
It's really great, Michelle, because, one of the things that I hear is you're also honoring, and this is going to sound a little crazy, right? You're honoring your dad.
Oh, I am.
And
I felt sorry for him. I asked his sister one day, why is he like that? She told me, he's spoiled. And I said, no, that's not a spoiled child. My grandchildren are spoiled, and they don't behave like that. They don't.
Yeah, but however, so hold on a second. Hold on.
He loved us. I know that. He loved us. He was just caught between two families. He didn't know who to please, his own or the other family. And he pleased the other family, which didn't, give him much credit with us. However, all I know is that, the same fears that I had was the same fears that he had, because it's generational. I know he wasn't spoiled. I know something happened to him. I could tell by the behavior. And when I studied the wheel of abuse and saw how huge that was, I realized my dad fitted into most of those boxes. So yeah, there's always a reason.
So here's the thing that I want to I want to throw out there that sounds so crazy. But I believe there's a place of being spoiled that leaves people very wounded and very broken. And I think that this will be an interesting thing for us to discuss, because I want to be responsible for our timeline. And we'll be back next week and we'll pick this up. But I'd love to leave everybody with a little bit of an assignment as we go through the next week. How is it that Coach Les can say that being spoiled can be a damaging thing and leave people broken that end up doing horrible things in their families? Because I have plenty of data on that based on the high school that I went to, and watching and seeing kids that are spoiled become atrocious in how they live and how they respect, or how they didn't respect. So I'm going to look forward to this, Michelle, because I think that there's a place for us to discuss this and take it and, take a look at it, take a slice. What do you think, Sujata?
Yes, of course. The topic is such that it cannot be covered in a short time.
Yeah. So I really appreciate everybody, and I thank everybody. And Sujata, thank you so much for partnering with me in this conversation. Sujata and I created this podcast to support these sensitive subjects that we're interested in cracking open like an egg. And I thank you, Moni and Alyssa and Ace and Jeanette and Michelle and Gloria San and Joey. I thank you for coming and being a part of this live, because we are live. We're live on 8 different places throughout the internet. And I look forward to this discussion where we look at what is it to be responsible for people's lack of respect. How is it functioning in society, and what is the damage it's doing in society today, and how do we get out of it? How do we create a new paradigm and an invitation for people to step into the skinny branches of a new way of being, a new life, a new doorway? And that's what we're up to. Sujata, do you want to say anything to close?
No, I want to thank everybody who came into the room or is listening from wherever to hear this. It means a lot because while we are partnering to do this, we are trying to give our little bits of wisdom, and the audience always matters, because the ones who come in for such discussions are the discerning ones. And so I highly appreciate that.
Awesome. Well, with that, I am going to play a little bit of a closing pitch, and then I'll be closing the room down, and I'll do it in our traditional style of Mission Impossible, as they say. And, I just thank everybody for watching. Thank everybody for listening. And I look forward to the next time. So with that,
Coaching with Les has doubled my practice.
If you have any struggles in your business or your personal life, Les is your guy.
He's logical, he's empathetic, he has passion for helping people, and his ideas are genuinely thoughtful.
So if you're looking for a business coach with integrity, choose Les Hill.